And asking myself that question, I had to be honest that the answer was what I just told you, that no, I didn't think that much of me at all. And when I started assessing my life, even though I had stuff on my wall, I had awards, I had my, passed the bar, I'm the first Black female partner in my firm, all this stuff, I had to own that I didn't think much of me and that it was actually bearing out in every area of my life. And so I had to change that. And so my RAIN platform actually stands on that. I don't want to say it this way. It doesn't stand on that brokenness, but it's certainly that brokenness that I experienced for the lion's share of my, at least young adulthood, certainly excites me and pushes me forward. I don't want anybody now to feel how I felt. I am absolutely just fired up to get people to realize that they are enough.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new edition of the None of Your Business podcast. Today, this is the moment that everybody's been waiting for. If you didn't know in advance that she was coming on the program, then you're in for a big treat. If you did know in advance, everybody's been waiting for the release of this particular episode. I know that in the Black Diamond Club, everybody's been pumped up to hear more from this person. Today, we are going to be hearing from one of, if not the most popular, loved, talked about summer camp speaker from 2020. I mean, and look, this person, she's in great company. I mean, we're talking about Jordan Belfort, Eric Thomas, you, me. I mean, everybody said this was their favorite speaker. And here's a reason why for me this is so near and dear to my heart, is because I went to high school with her. She has an amazing story. She has an incredible bio. I'm going to have her tell the story because it's way better than somebody just telling you, look at how great this person is. And if not, I'll just dig it out of her. She has tons of accolades. But when you hear her story, she's going to point out that life is not just about your accolades. So I hope that today's episode will touch and inspire tons of people. And I hope that you will be moved enough to engage further with our guest, because she has so many gifts that she has to share with the world. And I got to tell you, you would be missing out tremendously if you failed to take action and if you failed to engage. Let's bring on our special guest today, Dawn Rosemond, who I always say it on Facebook, it's Dawn Westfield. I know it's Dawn Westfield, but Dawn Rosemond, welcome to the None of Your Business podcast.
Oh my gosh. This is awesome. You were waiting for me. I've been waiting on this. This is like the highlight of this is second only to summer camp, the highlight of my year. This is awesome. I'm so excited. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You have such an incredible story. And I just want to give you the floor to let you sort of set the stage. Who is Dawn Rosemond? How did we end up here talking to you on the podcast? The sort of trajectory, the revelations, the big sort of breakthroughs that you have that lead you to this point.
Man, that's a big question. How did we end up here? I kind of ask myself that every day. I have to settle in that, when I stand on a stage and I get a chance to inspire people, or at least try to, and teach them what I truly believe, that greatness is hardwired into our DNA, man. We get here because, and I always say, let me back up. I always say that your royalty calls to you, and the job is to answer him or her. We get here, me sitting here talking to you, because I finally had the courage to answer. Sean, you know me for a long time. I was always focused on getting it right, whatever that meant. I wanted to be a lawyer for as long as I can remember. I wanted to do well. I wanted to be successful. I think all the things that most people want. But I never ever stopped to ask myself, what moved me and what was my purpose? Why does Dawn Rosemond exist? And when I finally started engaging in that conversation, my royalty started calling me. And here's a little bit of a secret. He or she doesn't shut up. And so when I finally started paying attention and answering her, started asking myself those same hard questions like, man, what, I'm doing the things that I said I wanted to do. Why aren't you happy? When I started answering that, trying to answer that question, it led me to a revelation that, my gosh, that I was playing so small and so living so beneath my royalty, my rightful positioning. And so when I decided, and I'm truncating this, and I'm sure you'll ask me more, but when I decided to get in position, if you will, decided to start taking up my rightful position as one who reigns, if you will, it started opening doors for me, and it led me to start saying yes to myself. It led me back in connection with you, and ultimately led me to saying yes to this crazy ask from you to step on that summer camp stage. And my gosh, my life it just will never be the same. And so that's a really short version, but I'm just pinching myself all the time, trying to figure out like what the heck is going on. I'm on this ride, holding on for dear life. Yeah.
Well, let's reel it back. I know at summer camp, you told the story of your upbringing.
Yeah.
We intersected in high school, and then sort of what that looked like. And then going on from there to university, we both went to Indiana University. Tell us sort of what the impact points or intersection points in your upbringing that you sort of drug along, but that in the end ended up being great tools and benefits to you making some key realizations and pivot points in your life.
Yeah. So, you're right. We intersected in high school, and, it predates even, when you and I met, for the longest time, I just had no idea. And this is a revelation that I came to later, had no idea who I was. I knew that I was smart. The only reason I really knew that is because I had external validation in some regard. I got good grades. And so that told me, Dawn, you must be smart because they said so, right? They said so. And, I thought I was capable, at least academically, again, because I got good grades. But otherwise, I didn't know who I was, and I didn't think that much of myself, to be very honest. One of the, if I think about it long enough, and I shared a little bit about this at summer camp, I was always trying to figure out, where did that come from? And I grew up with an amazing, raised by a single mom. I grew up with an amazing parent who taught me how to be strong, how to survive. She's still amazing. But my dad left when I was 4.5, and that screwed me up, man. And I didn't realize how much it had screwed me up until much later, but it played a role in my thinking about me. And so when the Dawn you met in high school, I don't know what you got. You have to tell me, but to the extent I presented like I was sure, and that I knew what I wanted in my life, and that I knew where I was going, and that was focused. That was all true and not true at the same time. I knew what I wanted to do academically. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. If you would have asked me, who am I, or worse, if you'd have asked me, Dawn, do you like you? If I'd had the courage to tell you at the time, I would have told you no. I just didn't know. I didn't think that much of me. And, I had, dealing with, again, I didn't know I had dad issues at the time. I processed everything from a space of, I wasn't enough. I just never really thought I was enough. I think I was so driven, quite frankly, because I was always trying to prove that to someone. Probably now that I think about it, more so to myself, that I was worth it. Whatever that meant at the time, whatever I was trying to achieve, whatever I was trying to do, whatever room I was in. And so I spent most of my journey, certainly through middle school, certainly through high school when you and I connected, and all the way through to when I started practicing, achieving and being broken at the same time. And that's a lot of weight to carry, man. And when I started, like I said, when I just shared, I kind of got open to this reality that I didn't think much of myself one day when I was sitting in a church service that was over, actually, and my pastor made this comment. He said, you are the sum total of your thoughts of you. Whatever, you will never rise any higher of your level of thinking about yourself. He said it differently than that, but that's what I heard. And it's not terribly profound. I'd heard it before, but in that moment, it was everything for me. It was like an explosion, because it was in that moment that I guess I had enough courage to ask myself that question. And in asking myself that question, I had to be honest that the answer was what I just told you, that no, I didn't think that much of me at all. And when I started assessing my life, even though I had stuff on my wall, I had awards, I had my, passed the bar, I'm the first Black female partner in my firm, all this stuff, I had to own that I didn't think much of me and that it was actually bearing out in every area of my life. And it was keeping me from things. I would not bet on me in ways that really counted. And so I had to change that. And so my RAIN platform actually stands on that. I don't want to say it this way. It doesn't stand on that brokenness, but it's certainly that brokenness that I experienced for the lion's share of my, at least young adulthood, certainly excites me and pushes me forward. I don't want anybody now to feel how I felt. I am absolutely just fired up to get people to realize that they are enough. If they get that, then they don't have to do what I did. They can bet on themselves from jump, man. And so that's what makes me excited. That's why I'm so fired up anytime someone gives me the opportunity to talk about RAIN, at all.
Yeah. And so where in all of this, so you get fired up about this feeling of you don't want anybody to go to that place that you were at. And you want to give them the courage not only to love themselves, but to know that they're enough. So where does RAIN get birthed in all of this? And how did you start that?
That's a good question, Lacey. We're all connected, I think, on some level by our stories, right? Mm-hmm. And I was increasingly, I think, because of the platform I had, have as a lawyer and a partner in a big firm, was asked to start speaking to different groups and particularly students. And I was asked to, so RAIN is REIGN. It's not a REIN, it's REIGN. And it's not a hype word. It means to overcome, to dominate, to superabound, to ascend, to win, the essence of win, to sway, to have influence, to wear a crown. Every time you ask me, I come up with an additional definition. But I was asked to speak to these students. It's this group here in my hometown, called Ladies with Purpose. And there's a group it's a scholarship program for predominantly African-American girls, high school age girls, but just girls of color. And so a lot of them wanted to be lawyers. And I decided, I said yes, I'd speak to them. And I've been speaking little by little, kind of telling my story otherwise in other venues. But I brought them into my office, and I called my friend, and I'm like, you know what? I got a hold of this word. This word called RAIN. I got a hold of this word, and I'm a big words person, Lacey. So I dig into them and I look them up. They kind of excite me. And so that one just exploded for me too. And so I told her, I'm like, hey, let's what if I call this thing a RAIN class? And she's like, oh, go for it. And so I did it. And then I said, what if I call these things that I give them raindrops? And I'm like, oh no. She's like, go for it. And so I tried it out, and these students, man, just like lit up. And I went home and that evening on Facebook, they were quoting, they're like, Miss Dawn said this, raindrop this, and they're quoting all these things. And it communicated back to me that this wasn't just me. I wasn't just in my own headspace, that this was something valuable, that while the concept of you're enough and that you need to bet on yourself are not necessarily new. I had a student tell me that they never had anyone tell them that they were royalty. They never had anybody tell them that they were that they arrived on the planet this way. And that validated me, and it made me want to do it more. The lawyer in me certainly then, and the business person in me wanted to then formalize it. And I just really decided to go after it. And so every time I started insisting, if you wanted me to speak, if you're asking, okay, can Dawn Rosemond, will you come speak? I'm like, sure, but only if I get to call it a rain class, only if I get to talk about rain. And so that's really where it came from. I didn't set out to create a platform. I set out to heal, honestly. It was personal. I tell everybody all the time, when you're a part of a rain class, you are literally a part of my own therapy session. You're just, the only thing is the couch. You're just there, and we're growing together every time.
Great. I love that.
The book is called Boss Presence, 100 okay 50 okay some tips for we bad chicks to reign at work. Tell me about the inspiration for the book. What would a reader hope to get out of it? And is it just for bad chicks?
No. So no, my husband will tell you definitively that no, bad dudes can read it too and get a lot out of it. I did it, Sean, because it was a rain class. I was asked to speak for a women's conference, and I really wanted to leave them something. And I was just trying to work on some takeaways, and I called my publisher, and he's my pastor, but he's a self-publisher. And so I was like, hey, what are your thoughts about this? And he's like, I think you should do a book. I'm like, no, dude, I'm not doing a book. I don't have time for that. I can't do a book. It's too much. I always wanted to write a book, and that's not the book I was intending to write. But I don't have time for that. And he's like, yes, you can. He says, you two, do me a favor. He's like, you give me content and we'll figure it out. And so I sat down in a weekend, literally, and I created what became Boss Presence. It's not long, but it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever written, because it was like, for the first time putting out there all this stuff that I'm just talking to you about freely, but before it wasn't like that. But just sharing how I felt about things, and then certainly talking about it in the context of work and encouraging, that's not the Dawn folks knew in my work, in my professional life. I still was working really hard to keep things separate. And one thing about your royalty is it will not play second fiddle to anything, right? So Boss Presence was my effort, to empower the women I had the privilege of speaking to own their royalty at work. Not like I didn't want them to be like me and come to work and kind of mute. A friend of mine told me he used to perceive me as I'd come into a room and like the ceiling was too low and I just kind of put my head down. And he's like, you're better than that, man. And so I wrote Boss Presence to give them something to take with them. I call it my little pep talk on demand. You can keep it in your purse, or for, my bad dudes, you can keep it in your briefcase, but the goal was to give folks, to share my story and to give them something that they can refer to over and over and over again, and understand that when they walk, they belong in every room that they enter, that they're walking royalty. That's critical for me. I didn't carry myself like that for years, so I wanted to give that away.
Well, I think one of the things super important for all of our viewers and listeners to understand, because as you listen to the story, because of Dawn's humility, she's like, yeah, I became, a partner at this law firm. Dawn is extremely accomplished. In fact, I remember you telling a story about your mother, and her pride and what you had managed to accomplish with your life. And we'll come back to that, because I know Lacey has a question, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we're not talking about like, well, I was just sort of this downtrodden. Like, Dawn went to Indiana University, extremely accomplished in academics, extremely accomplished in music, goes on to become a lawyer, pass the bar, It's not like she like worked as like, you know, one of those PI attorneys. Like she, nothing against the PI attorneys, but like
Ambulances with her cars.
She's a partner at a top 100 law firm. So it's not like she's kind of downplaying, you know, but because the emphasis on the other side of things, right? And so I think a lot of people can resonate with that because we work with a lot of people who are very accomplished in a lot of areas of life. They've done things, they have degrees and accolades and all of the things and the money, but there's still this hole, right, where they're not completely happy.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I was thinking about listening to you tell your story again. I mean, you said that you really had difficulty, you know, loving yourself and believing in yourself, and yet you were still able to accomplish all of these things. And you keep dropping this word and this concept of royalty. Can you tell us how you came into that into your life and expand on what that means for people listening out here?
So yes. And again, this word reign for me, I mean, it's by definition, I mean, it means it's regal in its origin, right? And so when I unpack all those words, you know, again, to overcome, to dominate, to superabound, to win, my favorite again is to wear a crown. You know, for me, Lacey, that's the one, to wear a crown is the one that probably resonated the most with me. You know, Sean, when you talk about, I appreciate so much, you know, you sharing, you know, a bit of my background. You know, I don't mean to downplay it because I'm not grateful, and I don't mean to not share it because it doesn't matter. It does. And I'm really, really proud of what I've been allowed, blessed to achieve. I mean, I'm really, really proud of that. This dominates so much more because of that statement. It goes to what you just asked me, Lacey, because of the statement I made that started all this for me, that you'll never rise any higher than your level of thinking about you. Because no amount of money, no amount of positioning, no position, no amount of influence, no association, doesn't matter who you know, none of that will get you over or allow you to eclipse what you think about you. It's your ceiling. And unfortunately, it's your ceiling, and it's the ceiling of those you lead. And so for me, when I got a hold of this word reign, Lacey, and I started unpacking all the different words and what it meant, all the synonyms, what does it mean? This concept of I am royalty, right? I am regal. It means to wear a crown. Really, really, just attached itself to me because that's the thing that I was missing. Let me tell you, man, I used to go when I became a partner, in this big firm. And I remember, and I've told this story before, but I remember, and it's not just one meeting, but I remember one in particular. I remember going to my first partner meeting, absolutely terrified, man. And and every partner meeting after that, I used to be so terrified. No one knew it. No one knew it because I'd show up dressed, appropriately and all these things, and I'd represent myself well according to the craft, the requirements of the role or the moment. But I was terrified, and as a result, I didn't really ever leverage the opportunity for so long, terrified that they would find out what I felt about me. I didn't articulate it at that point like this, but find out that I didn't really belong there, that I didn't belong in the room. And so, so for me to this idea, this belief that I wholeheartedly believe about me and about everybody that's listening, that we are walking royalty. Greatness is absolutely hardwired into our DNA. It changes the way you enter into rooms, literally. Nothing's really changed so much about the makeup of the rooms I enter. I sit with, not just within my firm, but I sit with, heads of organizations, CEOs, all these different folks. People have lots and lots of money, all these things, big, huge positions. Nothing's really changed. They don't look like me. They've got more zeros sometimes. They've got all these things. But what's changed completely, 100%, 180-degree shift, is that I no longer am looking to them to validate me, to approve of me, to give me clearance to enter into the room. I enter the room now like, this is my room. You get to meet me. And I don't think that's arrogance. I think that's necessary. That's necessary. And so people who are, I tend to lean toward, and I think they lean toward me, people who are highly accomplished, because I can talk to them. I know what you feel like. If you're sitting in the room like, yeah, I'm the CEO of this, I know what you feel like. I understand what it's like to be in charge of stuff, or to have a whole room listening to you and you feel like, golly, if they only figured out that I don't belong here. That sucks. So and when you get this idea, this concept that you're royalty, Lacey, there's nothing higher than that. And if you understand, I'm not talking about a hype word. I'm talking about positioning. That means you may still fail. You may still not, you may lose the opportunity. You may not get the job. You may not get the girl. You may not get the guy. It doesn't change anything, because this is my rightful positioning. And so if I don't get the job, then that just means there's another one for me, because I'm walking royalty, man. How could it not be? It changes how you move in every way imaginable. And that has been life-changing for me. And I just want people to get that.
You just dropped so many bombs right now. I can't even, I don't even know. Actually, I know which one I want to pick. You said something that I think was so powerful for everybody listening. You said the way that you think about yourself is not just your ceiling, it's the ceiling of those that you lead.
Yeah.
Wow. For all of the people out there, imagine it's just not you that you're impacting. It's those that you are leading that you're impacting. So obviously, your ability to overcome the way that you think about yourself is crucial in your leadership and who you are as a person. So do you have any tips or steps or things that maybe people out there that are struggling with this can begin to do to step into that royalty and reign the way that they need to love themselves and to lead?
Yeah. I mean, you've got to, first and foremost, you just got to make a decision. Because you've got to divorce yourself from your feelings. If you're waiting to feel like it, when I talk about those rooms that I used to enter, still enter, if you're waiting to feel like you belong, your feelings will betray you. You just will never step up. You will never raise your hand. You'll never go try to get the loan. You'll never open up the second location. You'll never do any of it. So you have to make a decision. You guys heard me at summer camp, and I told the folks, like, I don't have a lot of time with you, so I'm going to need you to just decide to believe me. So you've got to, at first and foremost, make a decision. Feelings notwithstanding, that I belong in every room that I enter, that I'm walking royalty, that greatness is a part of my DNA. You have to decide that. It sounds weird, it sounds crazy, but think about the alternative, and think about what the alternative is getting you. Quite frankly, think about what the alternative is keeping you from. So it first and foremost, Lacey, starts with a decision, and you have to double down on that decision every single day. And part of it, I remember sitting in front of my gosh, I wish I could remember her name. She's a fighter pilot, like Tom Cruise was in Top Gun. But I was listening to her speak, and she was saying, you got to do something that terrifies you every day. That tracks with owning your royalty. You've got to show up and decide to be amazing no matter what, every day. That means when you're going and you're like, I got a meeting this morning with my boss, or I got a meeting with my team. There's a way, or I should say, there are a way in which one moves when they own their royalty. You speak differently. You speak about yourself differently. When I use myself as an example, what changed for me when I started going to those meetings? I started. They have the regular meeting, and then they would have, breakout sessions for people to network. I would always take myself out of that, because that's where I got really uncomfortable, right? That's where people can really see you, when it's a little bit more up close and personal. I started deliberately putting myself in those moments so that I could teach them who I was. It was really, really excruciatingly at times uncomfortable for me. But I was determined to not stay in this place of thinking of myself less than. And so you've got to make a decision, and then you've got to attach an action to that decision every day, every moment that you go into, whether you're going to meet one-on-one with someone, whether it's going to be a huge meeting, whether it's going to be a presentation in front of 50,000 people, you have an opportunity to teach them that you're amazing. And when you do that, what's awesome, it's what happened to me at summer camp. All I wanted to do was speak into them, speak into all the summer campers. What happens in return is they resonate that back to me, right? And they're like, and so it just constantly just flows. But what happens if I don't show up, right? I could have been incredibly terrified. Probably I was for a little bit when I got the ask, and you're like, I'm looking at the list and I'm like, I think he made a mistake. I think he wants me to just come and watch this, right? But then I'm like, but you tell people all the time that you're walking royalty, Dawn, and so you've got to show up on that stage. You've got to show up, and I get it that you don't have all of these things that these people have, and you don't have. That doesn't matter. There is no one like you. Give them that. That's what you can do, Lacey. And that right there will change everything if you just decide to do that one thing. Decide, I'm royalty, man. I'm going in this meeting, I'm gonna rock it out. And I'm gonna teach them, like, do one thing to bet on myself in this meeting or whatever it is.
Well, we can say from experience and from feedback that it definitely worked. Just give them yourself.
Yep.
Last question here for the podcast is for you. So you were already accomplished and you were carrying around maybe this somewhat of a burden, and then you make that switch, you make that decision. What does that do for you? How is your life different now that you have come to this realization, done the work, and now you are reigning? Other than, I mean, of course, so people resonate with you and you're teaching them, but what has it done for your life, your relationship, and your business?
You remember what I said to you? I mean, at the end of the day, this was never about a platform or anything. It was about healing. So the primary thing it's done for me is you're talking to a free chick. You're talking to a free Dawn. It's I am not the same person that you even met 2 years ago. When we first reconnected, not even close to being the same person. And so what it has done, because when you live beneath your royalty, live beneath your rightful positioning, you block up opportunities because you're not really allowing people to see you, because you don't even accept you. You don't even, you're not fully bought into you. But when you're fully convinced, again, regardless of how all the things, when you're fully convinced that you belong in every room that you enter, that you're enough, you present that way, and that creates room for you. And room, and what I don't mean just in some sort of touchy-feely sense, it creates opportunities, right? I mean, you and I don't believe in accidents. So because I'm open to me, and because I'm free, then I can hear you when you say, Dawn, I want you to come speak at this huge thing that I've built. I want to yield my platform to you. It has certainly been financially rewarding. I mean, my book is doing well. I'm working on my second book. I'm getting ready to release all kinds of things, just product, into the universe, if you will. But it's opened me up to connections and relationships. We're talking because of a relationship, Sean. The thing, I've got, bookings for next year rain class events coming up. They're relationship driven. That's because I have decided that I'm enough, and I no longer am broken down if you don't choose me, because I've already chosen me. So I'm not looking for you to fill that gap for me. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
Yes,
100%.
Yes.
100%. Hey, and the people that are watching along live are just giving absolutely amazing feedback. People are getting so much out of it. We're going to wrap up the None of Your Business podcast. We're going to jump over into the Black Diamond Club. Look, if you're not yet a member of the Black Diamond Club, what are you waiting for? Go to www.blackdiamondclub.com. You get exclusive content from all of our None of Your Business interviews where we dive deep. I want to find out on the other side of this about Dawn's biggest losses. right? And her defeats and how she leveraged this new understanding to come back, to bounce back, and to be bigger and better. And I want to talk to her about what's coming up. She kind of hinted at some of the stuff, but I know so many people that are just waiting to engage further. Look, if you're listening to the None of Your Business podcast, join Black Diamond Club, and also make sure that you take a moment to jump over onto Amazon. Make sure you get a copy of Dawn's book. You're going to love it. And hey, if you already have a copy of the book, and I'm talking to everybody that's listening to us live as well, jump back on there and leave a 5-star review for Dawn. That is a key thing for authors. It helps them out. So if you're enjoying the content, you're consuming the content, I got to tell you, she's not living off the royalties, even though she is royalty. She's not living off the royalties from the book, but what helps her out is when you give her a 5-star review. If you have the book and have read it and got something out of it, that's your contribution back. It goes far beyond the $2 that she gets for selling a book. Thank you, Dawn, for being on the None of Your Business podcast. For all of you listening, please make sure that you subscribe, share this episode, because I'm positive that this will make a massive difference in the life of somebody that you love and care about. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss future episodes. And likewise, leave us a review, because we don't make any money by doing the podcast, but we appreciate your support and your reviews. We'll be back again next week with a brand new edition of the None of Your Business podcast.